Hi guys, it's Toria here. I just wanted to start off by saying that this episode has a kind of incessant clicking sound throughout, which we could not hear while we were recording. We did figure it out eventually. It unfortunately is also part of next week's record as well because we were doing like a 2 a day. But hopefully it's not going to drive too many of you too crazy because this next episode's really fun, has a lot of great stuff in it, and so does the next one. So apologies in advance, but again, we did get to the bottom of it. Okay, happy listening.
The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast about The Nanny. That's a hit sitcom from the 90s starring SAG-AFTRA president Fran Drescher. I am Sean DePasquale here with
Toria Sheffield.
That's right. And this week we are discussing season 5, episode 20, The Pre-Nup, short for prenuptial. This episode was written by Frank Lombardi and directed by Peter Mark Jacobson, former guest of the show. Yeah, friend of the show, Peter Mark Jacobson. Yeah, and I gotta tell you, this was a great episode. Much like when Fran directs, Peter also knocks it out of the park.
Wow, I really like. I like genuinely really like this episode on multiple levels.
Same,
and I'm liking that. You know what we're getting recently is. It's a very different thing than what we've gotten for so many seasons because they were in that holding pattern. So now we're just digging into like the actual real life repercussions of what an engagement means for these people. So it's like, it's kind of just like week to week, things are changing and evolving, and it's done realistically but still with a lot of humor. So I'm loving it.
Oh, they really that marketing campaign really got to you.
Yeah. My friend's little brother.
Now I want French fries.
My friend's little brother, who at like 7 years old was a little comedy guy. He'd go, I'm hating it. We'd be like, oh, brilliant. So this episode starts. Oh, I should say this episode is exactly what you would think it's, right? This episode's exactly what you would think. It is an episode where Mr. Sheffield starts to think that he and Fran should sign a prenup, and Fran has a lot of feelings about it. We see what happens. And so it starts with Niles and Mr. Sheffield in Mr. Sheffield's office, and we find out that Cece has hired a temporary replacement for her while she is away, and it's this woman that looks and talks exactly like her and is also really abusive to Niles, and Niles hates her. And I almost thought that it would have been a more intuitive beat to make this woman really like look like Cece but really kind to Niles, and Niles hates it.
I can see that.
He's like, there's something just off about her, and she'd be like, "Oh, like how was your day?" And he'd be like, I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was kind of unexpected that he doesn't like this woman who acts exactly like Cece.
That actually would have been very funny. You're right. It would have been very interesting, entertaining to have her be like super kind and him be like, I don't know. I just don't trust her.
Yes. And also during this scene, we see that like Mr. Sheffield has bought all of these like gifts for Fran, like a new cell phone, a pager, like he's going to give her a limo to use. And Niles' first reaction is basically like, oh, you must have really screwed up. Like, what did you do? if you're buying her all this stuff. And it turns out that Mr. Sheffield's attorney has advised him to sign a prenup with Fran. And he's really, really afraid of asking her. And for anyone who doesn't know, like a prenuptial agreement, it's basically outlining like exactly what will happen should you divorce. Yes. And people have, maybe again, some of our younger listeners might not know much about it, but people have very mixed feelings about prenuptial agreements. Like some people think they're just really smart. They're really practical. It's like, life is unpredictable. So let's just be safe. Other people really feel like it's going into your marriage with the wrong mindset. Like if you were already thinking about like, well, who's going to have what? Should we break up? Like you're already like not as fully committed to making it work as you should be.
as someone who married a lawyer, we had the prenuptial discussion pretty early on, and our take on it was the opposite of that. It was that we're never going to love each other more than we love each other now. So why not discuss all of the potential shit that could come up in an ugly divorce now? Because if it does happen, which we obviously don't think it will and hope that it doesn't, then at least like the answers to all of the questions are coming from two people who still care about each other and are kind, instead of two people who are angry at each other and maybe aren't so kind. So, and it was really less about money, because neither one of us really has anything going in, you know? And it was really more about like, well, what happens to the kids? Well, what happens to this? Well, what happens to that? What happens if one of us is a drug addict? And, you know, like it was us trying to account for all of the potential possibilities for like the worst case scenario, but do it at a time where like, you know, okay, well, if one of us is a drug addict, like we would want the other one to like take care of them and like make sure they're okay. And like, sure, we wouldn't want them to like just have access to all of the money and the children while they're in the fit of their, you know, addiction. But like if they got like the proper care and whatever. So I don't know. We looked at it more as like that, as like a document planning for the worst case scenario while you're in the best state that you can be in, rather than like some bad, evil thing, which I remember from the 90s, honestly, from shows like this, only ever seeing prenuptials depicted as like this thing that you don't sign, or that old rich men wanted like young women to sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how it is such a like, people have like a really strong emotional reaction to the idea of it sometimes. Yeah, but anyway, so this is why Mr. Sheffield is very afraid, because, you know, he's afraid that she'll take it as an insult, or that he doesn't, you know, trust that they're going to last. And in fact, Niles goes, when he finds out that's what Mr. Sheffield needs to do that day, he goes, why don't you just walk through downtown a rock dressed as Uncle Sam? It'll be quicker.
Such a dark joke.
I know. Can you imagine?
Very funny, but
walking
so
down
dark.
the street of downtown, or of like Baghdad in an Uncle Sam outfit. My God. At this time, at least. So then Fran comes in, and he instantly chickens out, because he's like, darling, yes, I just have a little quick paperwork for you to sign. And she's like, oh, I trust you. You know, I'll sign anything as long as it's not a prenup. And then he like kind of like grabs the folder away from her, and it's like, oh, never mind. And he kind of tries to like slink away, but she instantly knows like that means there's something he doesn't want her to see. So she kind of grabs it back, looks, and as soon as she sees it's a prenup, she goes, oh, water, and she falls onto a chair and goes, I'm swallowing my tongue. and she loses it, right? Like, she's like, this means you don't trust me. And like, what have I ever done to make you feel that way? And I instantly went, oh no, is this going to be a clip episode? I thought it was leading up to like all the time she screwed up, but I was like, oh, thank God.
Well, there was that one time.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, and we hadn't had one in quite a while, so I was like, oh no. But
like, oh no, Sean's too busy to edit another clip episode.
But so then we well, I'll actually say this. We also find out there's a weight clause in this, because she, as a joke, she's like, what else am I going to see in here? Like, oh, a clause about my weight. And then she's like, and then he's like, the lawyer saw your mother. And I was literally like, honey, leave him right now. That was the most insane thing. And it made me really mad that he would allow it. But anyway, so, and I was like, I wonder if, I'm sure there have been marital agreements where something like that is in there. I'm sure of it.
That's crazy to me.
Where it's like, if neither party, like, you know, maintains like physical.
I found that to be very yucky. It really turned, I was like, ew, that's messed up. That was my reaction. I was like, ew, that's messed up.
Yeah, it was horrible. But so, but then Fran is like, you know what? Like, two can play at this game. I have relatives who are notary public / travel agents, and I'm going to get a prenup of my own. And as she leaves, he's like, you'd better hurry. Wouldn't want that welcome back Carter lunchbox falling out of your family's hands. So it just got ugly very fast.
Yeah.
And in the next scene, Fran's in the kitchen, and she is wearing an incredible dress. Like that candy wrapper dress. Did you clock it?
Yes, it was like Snickers and Payday and all of the candy bar like wrappers like all wrapped around her, kind of.
Yeah,
like,
and they were made from like sequins. And I noticed though they're all Mars brand candies, so no Hershey's in this house. I wonder
in this house we love
Mars.
Yeah.
The Mars and the Hershey rivalry, it is like a Coke Pepsi rivalry, but people don't realize. People just don't know.
People don't know, and I'm here to tell them about it.
Truth sayer. But so then
people don't know, and that's why we started this podcast.
Yes. One time, well, it's a long story, but my friend wrote a paper on it in middle school, and Mars sent her all this candy.
Oh, well, I mean, in that case, if Mars is listening, we also hate Hershey's.
Sponsorship, please.
But if Hershey's is listening, we hate Mars.
Hershey's, please. Actually, no, I would prefer a Mars. I don't know. It's hard to think. But anyway, so Sylvia knocks on the door of the kitchen, and because we also have established that Fran and Maxwell have a wedding photographer appointment later that day. And that was one of the best lines of the episode, where when Fran tells him, she's like, don't forget, like, Sammy's niece Edna is a wedding photographer, and we have a meeting with her later. And then she's like, you know, she's that one that photographs dogs dressed like people. And then she goes, she recently did 4 Yorkies dressed as the Beatles. Very clever. She was like very smart, and I just like laughed out loud. But and Sammy being Ray Charles, so Ray Charles has another very talented niece who is a wedding photographer, and but Sylvia comes in, and Fran, you know, kind of like vents to her about this prenup thing, and Sylvia's like, darling, just sign it. Like, if that's the thing that's going to prevent you guys from getting married, it's no big deal. So I thought Sylvia was going to have a problem with it, but Sylvia was literally like, no, like, sign. And I should say,
it kind of tracks though, right? Because I did too. At first, I was like, oh man, Sylvia's about to go off. And then when she was like, just sign it, I was like, yeah, I guess that also makes sense from Sylvia's perspective. She's like, whatever, dude. Like, you're never going to get this opportunity again. Just don't screw it up. So, like, just sign the prenup, you know? He knows what's going to happen in the future. He could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You know?
Yes. Well, because the other thing is, prenups don't just outline like what like the wife can't have, or what the person who like makes less money can't have. It's also like, should this happen, this is clearly what you will get. So it's also protections are in place, right? Like it's very like, you know, it's outlined like, if someone dies, like, you get this. If we divorce, but you like haven't been working because you've been raising our kids, then you will be guaranteed like this amount of money annually. So there's lots of it's not always just like, as you said, but even in situations where it's like a rich person marrying a less rich person, it's not always just like a sinister document, right?
Exactly.
So in the next scene, so Fran kind of like mulls it over, but she's still like not on board, right? In the next scene, they're all at the wedding photographer's studio. So it's Fran, Maxwell, Sylvia, and Yetta and Sammy. It's so cute, those two old people together. It just warms my heart.
I love them.
And it's really funny because we established the space, like the photographer's space. It's portraits that are all of like dogs in wigs and clothes. And it was so funny. It was so like gaudy and tasteless and funny. And I love that Fran loves it. And then
there's a shot in this scene where Yetta makes a joke, and I don't know if it's the character Sammy or the actor, like, but like he's just like Ray Charles, like, but he's just laughing hysterically next to her. Yeah.
Yes, I could be wrong, but I kind of get the feeling that those two really got along. Yeah. Like, remember when
I think she cracked him up. Like, it really seemed genuine. It did not seem like he was supposed to laugh there. It seemed like she finds her very funny.
Yeah, I had that exact same thought.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
And then I did not know this was coming, but Edna comes in and it's Whoopi Goldberg. It's Whoopi friggin' Goldberg, who is Sammy's niece. And I love this thing that they've established where anytime Sammy brings a relative, it's actually a very famous person.
Yeah, every time.
And so she's like, sorry, I'm late. I was shooting some nudes. It's just so funny when you're a dog photographer. and there's this line in there also where at one point Yetta is eating what she thinks is she goes, oh, these Triscuits are really stale. And Whoopi Goldberg's like, Yetta, you're eating a liver snap, like for dogs. And she's like, with milk? It's not kosher. Yeah. It was so funny. But like, while this is a very silly, funny scene because of all the like, you know, crazy like dog related humor, it also establishes that Fran and Maxwell are still very much in the thick of their fight. Like, because while Edna is trying to talk to them about like what they might do for their photography, for their, you know, welcome booklet, they are just fighting over her. And at one point, sort of at the end of this, Maxwell he gets really angry and he stands up and he says he's leaving. And Fran's like, so what? Like, if I don't sign this, the wedding's off? And he's like, thinks about it and he's like, yeah, I guess that's exactly what it means. And leaves. And the other thing we should establish is that when Mr. Sheffield first talks to Niles about this problem, he says, he's like, you know, after my father died, I found out like the situation's a lot more complex than I thought. Like, I actually am kind of responsible for my siblings and their children. And like, I have to be making a lot of decisions for them. So like this marriage, so like they're kind of pressuring me as well, just so that everyone is protected. Right. Which is also probably a very realistic position to be in. Right. So it's not just him being like, in case, you know, I want to be able to cheat and have no repercussions or something, which is how some people like think about these prenups. Yes. Because a lot of them, especially sometimes where it's like these wealthier older men, it's literally like, should I cheat? Like, should there be infidelity? Like the woman gets nothing, but should I be unfaithful? Like it's fine, or like stuff like that. You know, it's like, but so
that's what our prenup says.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But the opposite way.
Now Liz can do whatever the fuck she wants.
Liz can do whatever she wants, and I am not allowed to do anything. I also have to wear a skirt.
So then back at the mansion, Fran is explaining everything to Val, and she's kind of going over it and why, you know, she just doesn't doesn't sit well with her signing this agreement that's kind of like almost anticipating their marriage not working out. And then Val is like very, very reasonable. She's like, you know, well, Fran, like, well, what's the big deal? You know, this prenup, like it also protects you, right? And it also protects the children that you love and want protected. And I'm sure his family is pressuring him. So it makes perfect sense to me that he would be asking for this at this juncture. And then there's this pause. And then she just goes, Val, I think that ginkgo's beginning to kick in. So, Val's been on like ginkgo biloba or whatever, which is supposed to like enhance brain energy. And it's like the idea that like that has actually made her smarter. Smart. Yeah, it's very funny. And
didn't we get a Flowers for Algernon Val episode? Or am I hallucinating that?
I don't think we. No, I don't.
Well, that's my pitch. If the show ever gets rebooted, I want Val to. Val takes a supplement that makes her really, really smart, and then slowly loses it till at the end she's back to being dumb Val.
So funny. Also, what a tragic short story.
I know. I'm sad.
But then while they're mulling this over, the phone rings and Fran picks it up. She instantly looks really, really concerned. It's the local hospital calling, and Brighton has been in a rollerblading accident and he hit his head. Fran jumps up. She leaps into action. She like barks all these very specific orders at Val, like who to call, who to wait for, what to do when Gracie and Maggie get home. And she like rushes out the door. And it was very much a like, oh, wow. When crisis happens, like Fran leaps into action and she's very clear-headed. And then she, you know, rushes into the hospital and like sort of demands to see Brighton Sheffield. And she's like, is he okay? I need to see him. And then this like nurse is like, are you family? Like, are you his legal guardian? And she's like, well, no, technically, no, I'm his nanny. And they're like, well, then you can't see him. And Fran is, first she's really upset, but then we see that she sees a nun and starts like clearly explaining her situation. Like, and the next scene is Fran in the nun's full outfit, walking herself into Brighton's room. So she is clearly convinced this nun to give her all her clothing so that
this had one of my favorite moments in the show, but go ahead. It happens in a few minutes.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll also say there is a really funny terms of endearment reference in the scene.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. So Fran is trying to convince the nurse to be like, let me see him. And then she just goes, give my daughter the shot. Because that is famously what, oh my God, who famous actress in terms of endearment. She yells. I'll Google it. Huh? No. Oh my God.
Shirley MacLaine.
Yes. Someone was probably screaming that to us through their
Shirley
headphones.
MacLaine. It didn't take us that long to get there.
No. So yeah, Shirley
Calm
MacLaine screams that when her daughter's in the hospital and that movie. But so anyway, so Fran gets herself through her own special ingenuity into Brighton's room, and instantly, like, he kind of comes to, and she sees that he's okay, and she's so relieved. And then Gracie and Maggie show up because, Val like had kind of waited for them and told them, and they instantly get in, and Fran's like, oh, girls, like, you must be so confused as to what's happening. And they're like, oh no, you probably couldn't get into the room, so you stole a nun's clothes. And yeah, that makes sense. Like,
that was my favorite. That was my favorite. I thought that was so friggin' funny with like zero context, knowing every beat of the episode. Like Gracie just being like, yeah, you're dressed as a nun because you couldn't get into the hospital and you had to meet a nun. Like,
yes. They just know her so well that it all makes total sense to them. Right.
Yeah.
And it was also really funny because while they're talking around Brighton, they all keep taking food. They're like Maggie sees milk and she's like, the nurse said no dairy, and takes the milk off of his tray so she can drink it. And then there's also a sandwich, and Gracie's like, yeah, or no sandwiches. And then he's like, can I at least have the cookie? He's like, can I at least have the cookie? And Fran has the cookie already in her mouth, and she goes, it's raisin. You won't like it. but the real important part of this scene is that while Fran is talking to the kids, Mr. Sheffield is about to come in the room, and he overhears what they're talking about. And Fran, like, still really emotional. She's like, I love you kids so much. Like I never want anything to happen to you. I would do anything for you. Like, I want, you kids need to know that. And Mr. Sheffield overhears it, and he comes in the room, and he kind of like, he doesn't act like he had gotten there early, and he just sort of like makes sure Brighton's okay. And then, he and Fran kind of like, they don't necessarily fully make up, but they're like, this is such a crazy day. Let's just, hug each other and give each other a kiss and not worry about all that nonsense we were talking about. And then we go back to the mansion, and it's evening after like this whole crazy day. And Mr. Sheffield's in his office, and Fran comes in, and it was actually very sweet. She was like, where'd you disappear to when we got back from the hospital? And he was like, oh, I took a walk. He's like, I got the call that every parent dreads, and I just needed a little time to let my insides like return to their proper place. And I was like, that's really sweet that they acknowledge that, like they could like easily kind of just like blown past that for the sake of just like, this was a plot device, to get us somewhere. But it felt like, oh, he is a father who just loves his children. and he's not some like rich monster who's trying to, get his wife to sign this thing. And so, Fran was like, I'll sign that prenup, like if that's what it takes to spend the rest of my life with you, like, I'll do it. Like, let's just really put this to bed. And he's like, okay. And he kind of hands her a folder with papers, and she opens it, and she's like, this isn't the prenup. And he's like, no, he's like, they're adoption papers. I had my lawyer draw them up. This is when I literally started tearing.
Me too. Like, I love that so much.
Yep. He's like, I want you to be the children's legal guardian. And I was just like, I don't know. It was just so good. It was so good. And he rips up the prenup, and he's like, and this is the part where I tell you I trust you, and I know we'll be happy for the rest of our lives. and they kiss.
But I loved it. I feel like once I saw it happen, I was like, oh, I think I remember this happening. But like, I didn't remember it happening until it happened. And I was like, so touched. What a cute way to get to that. Like,
yes.
And how meaningful for her to be these children's legal guardian, because she really has raised them. I thought it was really cute. It was really cute.
One of these 10 out of 10 episodes, I think, where they do it all. And then the button of the episode is, it's very funny. Fran is heading out in the nun outfit because she's going to try to get out of a parking ticket because she still kept the outfit. And also, it was weird. In this button, Yetta's in the kitchen reading a book, and they very clearly show the book she's reading, right? And it's called The Money Club. And they even have her be like, Yetta, what are you reading? And she says the title of the book out loud. It was almost like a product placement, right?
So what is the book? Did you look it up?
I did. I'll get into that in trivia. But
I knew you
it's
did.
really weird because it keeps saying that it was published in 2001 and this episode was 1999. So I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. And I was trying to figure out if Fran Drescher or Peter Mark Jacobson had a connection to the writer of the book or was trying to help them out or what the thing is. But it was very interesting. And I'll get into the book a little later. But that's the whole episode. To me, it was a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. If you don't have anything else to say, should we get into segments?
I think segments. And now, segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
To say we can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments with Sean and Toria.
All right. Favorite lines and moments.
I already said a lot of mine, but when Fran says, "Don't forget we have that appointment with the dog photographer," with the wedding photographer, the one who does dogs dressed as people. So funny.
Yeah, we did a lot of mine too. Although, you got another one?
No. I was just gonna say, in general, I really like the emotional beats of the episode, and the scene when Fran snaps into action in the crisis, when he overhears how much she loves the children, when it puts everything into perspective for him. I loved it.
Yep. I agree with all of that. I also really liked Maxwell telling Fran, if you don't sign the prenup, the wedding is canceled. And then Sylvia going, I'm going to faint. And Sammy standing up and going, I'll catch you. And he's facing the complete wrong way. It was really good. All right. What's next?
There was no
trivia?
Yiddish, but no Yiddish. How long have we been doing this and we still don't ever know what's coming next?
I don't know what time it is, so I barely know what time it is.
Party time. Fran says Kanish because when she's dressed as the nun.
Is that a Yiddish word?
No. Well, it's a Jewish word. It's an Ashkenazi word. Because
fair.
she's when Fran is leaving with Gracie to go work out her parking ticket, she's dressed as a nun and she's like, "Come on, honey, we'll get a knish on the way." The idea that this woman dressed as a nun would do that. But so we've talked about this before, but it's an Ashkenazi Jewish snack food. It's like dough, baked or deep fried, and it can be filled with meat. It can be filled with potatoes, cheese. It's yummy. It's a savory food.
I love a potato knish from Cantor's. All right. We're going to get canceled.
Why?
This is the episode that we get canceled. No, I mean the network is going to cancel us for wasting their time.
Oh, that's fair. Okay. So, for Nanny Trivia, this isn't so much. Well, I realized I forgot. I threw a couple of things in Nanny Trivia. One was just about prenups in general. I got this from some legal website, so who knows where this data even comes from. But It says researchers found that roughly 40% of newlyweds and engaged couples between the ages of 18 and 34 report having negotiated the prenuptial agreement. Far from being something that only a handful of couples ever consider, the modern prenuptial agreement plays a role in 2 of every 5 modern engagements involving younger adults. And they said that really the rise starts with millennials, many of whom witnessed messy divorces when they were kids.
So that actually tracks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually tracks a lot of divorce in our generation. I think that's probably pretty accurate that we witnessed a lot of messy divorces in our time. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, we're terrified.
Yeah, because it's hard to love. But so when so there was that was interesting. And the other thing is I looked into the book, The Money Club, because I was like, why did they give it so much like screen time? And I was like, I don't know, maybe Fran Drescher just really believes in the message behind it, because so from Amazon, it's when I don't even know how to say this word, pecuniary. I don't even know what that means. Let me Google
I don't even know what that means.
I should have Googled that first.
No, it's perfect.
It's a pecuniary. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to see how to pronounce it. Pecuniary. Yeah, it's relating to or consisting. It's relating to money. Okay, so it says when pecuniary professional Marilyn Crockett and public relations specialist Diane Turman Feldenstein, I think she's Jewish, realized just how many women suffer financial destruction through widowhood, divorce, sudden illness, and job displacement, they formed an investment club with female friends to foster fiscal independence for all. The so-called Money Club proved successful, and the pair has now committed its expertise to paper. The Money Club, How We Taught Ourselves the Secret to a Secure Financial Future and How You Can Too, is packed with their money management tips along with personal stories from club members that illustrate why such information may prove crucial. So just
listen, she's not just a member, she's also a client.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I want to read this book.
I do too. I want to be financially independent woman.
Yeah, I know I'm a mess. But so it was interesting.
Don't get me started.
Listeners, don't get me started. Toria is a mess. But so so that was that. Okay, and then the Fran or the Cece. I said I felt like the Whoopi because I would love a business where I had dogs dressed as people. But also maybe realistically the Fran.
I feel like I'm the Fran, and here's why. I love kids. I dated a girl that had a kid many, many years ago. When we met, she had like a 1-year-old daughter, and we dated for like 3 years. And I loved that kid, and had the relationship worked out, I would have definitely adopted that child because I adored her. So I could definitely see how Fran could very easily fall in love with these children and become such an intrinsic part of their lives that eventually it would make sense for her to be their legal guardian. So I identified with that, and I thought it was very sweet. And this episode made me cry, which is very rare for this show. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's an episode.
That's an episode.
All right.
Thank you guys for listening. We're on Oh Mr. Chef Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and you can email us at
Mr. Sheffield podcast at gmail.com is where you can email us.
Yeah.
Drop us a line. Also, don't forget 5-star reviews, baby, on every podcasting platform. Let's go. Let's get them up there.
I think Sean, emails make Sean the happiest and reviews make me the happiest. I love them both, but if I had to think,
so come on. There's like 500 people listening a week now. So let's go. We got to get 500 reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If we could get 500 reviews, we'll make Toria cry again.
Because you'll have replaced me as host. That's your goal. Once we get 500 reviews, we'll replace Toria.
If we get 500 reviews, we're firing Toria, guys. Let's go. Finally, this years-long nightmare can be over.
Okay, but anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we're gonna meet up with you next week.
Goodbye.
The Flushing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
I go, Miss Fine.